Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Catina Webster. Catina is running for House of Delegates in the 59th District. It's Southern Morgan County and Eastern Berkeley County. She's running against Sarah Blair, who we've had on the show before, and Sarah is the incumbent. Catina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Now you told me before the show you were born in Cheverly, Maryland.
Correct.
And tell us a little bit about yourself, the work of your parents and what it was like growing up there.
Sure, so my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad had a construction company. He taught us values in terms of working hard, strong family values. When I was 18, I went straight into management. In my early 30s, I followed my dad's lead and I went into business for myself. I had a few contracts. It was talent acquisition. I had a multi-million dollar contract under the Department of Justice as a second-tier contractor, a number of state contracts.
Okay, now wait, when you say talent acquisition for the Department of Justice, you were looking for lawyers?
I was a headhunter.
Oh, you were a headhunter.
That nasty word, but the nice word nowadays is talent acquisition.
Okay, but the nasty word is headhunter.
Yeah.
You were a headhunter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that for a number of years, and it became a child in its own right. And my husband then had a few concerns. He preferred me to be in the house raising our kids, which is sort of the role that he had taken on. And I took that to heart. I had conflict within myself, and I had to do a lot of thinking. And ultimately, I decided to give up the business and go back to being a stay-at-home mom. So here I am.
Where's your family now? Where do you live now?
Well, my daughter, the oldest, is going to college in Maryland, and the youngest goes to Shepherd University here. Okay. Right now, I'm living in Hedgesville.
So your home is in Hedgesville?
It is. Okay. Yeah.
Now, this is your first run for political office.
It is.
What made you decide to do this?
Well, I actually voted for Mrs. Blair. I truly believe when,
You voted for your current opponent.
I did.
In the last election.
I did.
In the last election.
Yikes, I did. So when she said that, she was independent, and I honestly believed her. And I think we need to stop associating so much with political parties in our country and start getting more in tune with our interests. There are so many interests that we all have in common, regardless of your political affiliation. One example right here in Berkeley Springs is ADA compliance. I'm constantly in contact with those of, a plethora of views from both the Mountain Party, Libertarians, and Republicans to see what we can do to get the sidewalk fixed so that the elderly and the disabled can just, enjoy the beautiful scenery and the activities that take place in the summertime as everyone else. So I'm more about interests versus political affiliation. So if you're interested, in common views, we should have those conversations and we shouldn't have those barriers set up there like political affiliation.
How do you describe your politics?
I am very much independent, although I am a Democrat. It just so happens.
Why didn't you run as an independent?
Well, let me just say this. It just so happens that Democrats, in terms of my interests, they more so align with Democrats versus Republicans. Right now, just to be honest, there isn't a whole lot of opportunity running with parties that don't have as much of a presence. So one of the actions that I want to do when I'm voted in is to see what we can do to get past the ability for West Virginians to do recall and referendums. So then when we have this silliness that's going on in the legislature, those with a common interest, forget about political affiliation. Those with common interests, like we want people to be able to go to work without having the government shut down. If we have common interests like those, we should be able to gather our resources and hold our legislature accountable. So that's one of the acts that I want to do as soon as I'm voted in, to see what we can do. It's in 21 states right now. We can't do that here in West Virginia. You can do it at a local level, but
recall and referendum.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Recall means that if you don't like the person you voted in, you can get a petition, put it on the ballot, and get them out of office.
You got it.
Referendum means people write their own laws, put it on the ballot, vote. Direct democracy.
Yeah, so a good example of that is I was in Charleston over the weekend, and we were able to get cannabis on as part of the platform for the Democratic Party. So if that is an interest of yours, that may be an area that you may be willing to cross the line on. And there isn't a whole lot of interest in the legislature right now to take that on. I do know that Mike Pushkin introduced a bill. It's kind of dead in the water right now, but at least he got that conversation started. If you're tired of waiting on the legislature and you want to do something yourself to get involved, why not get a referendum started? Well, we can't do that.
What does it take to get recall and referendum in West Virginia?
Well, you have to get it as part of the.
You have to change the Constitution.
Thank you. That's where I was going.
And how do you do that in West
Well, we have to first. Well, let me just back up a little bit. So there was actually a Republican, here again, right? I'm a Democrat, but I'm speaking of a Republican. This is interest, not political affiliation. We had a Republican who recently had introduced legislation for that last year, and it was dead in the water. So this is one of those areas where, it will cross political affiliation, and hopefully it's something that we can get through.
All right, let's backtrack a little bit, because I'm not sure you answered my first question. Okay. What made you decide to run this?
Oh yeah, thanks for reeling me back in. So, shame on me, phooey on me for actually believing that, she was going to go in with an independent stance.
What do you mean that she's not in? When you say, I mean, it sounds like you're running because she said she was going to be independent and you believe she's not.
I did. So I'm going to hold myself accountable as a voter. And because I made that mistake and so many paid the price, when you look at this union busting legislation, a lot of people are paying the price for that. It's incumbent upon me to do whatever I can do to correct that mistake. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm running. I mentioned to you that my dad was a union member. He did construction. He had a construction company. It was through those that he had worked with in the union who had encouraged a small town guy from North Carolina with an 8th grade reading level to go out there and pursue his own business. And this is back in the 80s. He's an African American, not necessarily, the great environment for him to start a business. And he did it, and he was quite successful at it. And I followed in his footsteps. So I have hope.
Now, when you talked about cannabis, what you meant was legalizing marijuana.
I do.
Okay, and then you believe that West Virginia should legalize marijuana. Why?
Well, let me just say this. I have an issue with legislating people's civil liberties. I don't think that we need to babysit people for a substance that, if you look at the statistics, is far safer than alcohol. And I've never seen, and we can all make an argument for, there have been people who have died from cannabis off of brownies or one of these one-offs. Mm-hmm. But I have never seen any statistics concerning cannabis that's anywhere near alcohol. So when you look at the numbers in states like Colorado, they've made millions. We're doing budget cuts right now. We're about to have a shutdown due to the revenue. They've made millions. Look, we have over half the states right now who have legalized marijuana in some shape or form. Why are we trying to babysit grown adults and their civil liberties?
How many states have legalized it?
It's 26 now.
26.
Yeah. Ohio, Governor Kasich just signed it into law. What was it, yesterday? So yeah, we're over half. We're over the halfway mark. If you look at the different polls that have come out, over half of Americans are in support of cannabis in some way, shape, or form. So,
the budget crisis.
Yeah.
How would you close the gap? How would you close the budget
Well, gap? We were talking about cannabis. I mentioned that over billions have been made so far with that. If you look at Colorado's judicial system, they've had to close 5 prisons. Can you imagine the savings that they've had in the judicial system, the cost savings to the police, the cost savings on not having to feed these people in prison? It's ridiculous.
What about increasing the cigarette tax?
I am open to taking a one-time hit for 1 year to close that gap. If we can get cannabis going, and I think it's fair to say we can project out revenue looking at these other states. I'm willing to take a one-time hit.
$1 a pack? Is that what you
I'm willing to take a one-time hit for 65 cents, which is the proposal out right now, for a year. if we can get cannabis going, and the conversation has started, Mike Pushkin has put a bill out, we can project out revenue that would be able to close the gap. I don't think this is pie in the sky. We have actual numbers out there to be able to make such projections. But let me get back to the benefits of cannabis. If you look at the states where it's legal at and you take a look at the numbers, there is a clear suggestion that there is a reduction in opiate use in the states that have legalized it. So, I mean, let's take a look at it. Let's get beyond these different platitudes and let's just stick to what the numbers say. And I think if we do that, we will have a sort of forward thinking, and move forward with it.
Two big issues on the economy in West Virginia. One is coal and the other is fracking.
Yeah.
How do you come down on those?
Listen, this is a beautiful state. If you look at the United States Geological Survey's website and just take a look at the numbers, there is a clear suggestion that there is a correlation between man-made earthquakes and fracking. So when you hear people say that there is a way to do this safely, I've never heard of a safe earthquake in my entire life. Listen, this is out there in the public domain. Anybody can go to the United States Geological Survey site and take a look at the numbers for yourself. Why not make that move and get serious about renewable energy? When you look at these states that has implemented measures, and when you look at individuals who get a check cut to them from the electric company from having solar panels and their excess energy is fed back into the grid, they get a check from the electric company. Listen, would Cat, and by the way, my name is Cat Webster on the ballot, would Cat like to have a check cut to her from the electric company? Absolutely. My days, if I could do it today, I would, and say my days of paying the electricity company is over. I'd do it in a heartbeat. Wind, geothermal energy, all of these are cost savings without harm to our environment. So when you look at the effects with man-made earthquakes, again, you can say whatever you want, but just take a look at the numbers out there in the public domain. I've never heard of a safe earthquake. We have a lot of the resources right here in this area, with silicone. A lot of the materials that you need to build solar panels. I had a discussion, and many of you who have talked to me before, you've heard me say this, so apologies if I'm repeating it, but I've had a conversation with the president of MTV Solar, and he feels like we can bring 500 jobs right here to our district, if we get the ball rolling on that. So let's do it. We need jobs. We need safe ways to create energy. Why aren't we doing it?
If you listen to the radio in West Virginia, you'll hear many times a day advertising for the coal industry. Coal is West Virginia. And coal historically has been West Virginia. How would we move away from it? Do you favor moving away from it?
I do. But let me say this. I feel that the country owes West Virginia a debt of gratitude. We have powered the country for decades. So when I read that the federal government offered millions of dollars for help to those displaced coal workers, I was very pleased with that. And it's the right thing to do. So let's make sure we take care of those displaced workers. We are going to need workers to make the transition over to renewable energy. I just want to make sure we're not taking those dollars and getting it stuck in red tape by hiring, a lot of HR. Listen, it's necessary to hire middle management and HR folks, but I want to make sure that money gets to those displaced workers. We are going to need people to put up those windmills. We are going to need people to manufacture those solar panels. If you just go do a Google search right now, there are a lot of schools out there right now that will train you on renewable energy. Let's just make sure we're taking those funds, making sure it goes to those displaced workers, and they're getting the training that they need for renewable energy. We're going to need those workers. There is no reason to bring in outside workers from other states when we have the workers right here, right now. Go ahead.
Are you, on presidential politics, are you Hillary or Bernie?
Well, the bottom line is Hillary Clinton right now is the nominee, and I'm going to support her 100%.
In the run-up to where you Hillary?
I did not make a decision. I'm going to be very, frank with you. I was waiting around to see, which way, which way was going to make headway. I'm very grateful for Bernie Sanders. Am I in a rush to see him go to the side right now? No, I don't think his work is done. I think he has brought Hillary Clinton further to where he's at on the environment. I think that she knows a lot more today about fracking because of Bernie Sanders. I'm not quite sure that she's all the way there yet.
It could be a typical Clinton thing, though, because what they do is, under pressure from people like Bernie, and for political advantage, they'll tack towards Bernie, but then when they get in office, they go back. For example, the head of the Chamber of Commerce said when she went from being against Trans-Pacific Partnership, when she went from being in favor of Trans-Pacific to being against it because of Bernie's pressure, said, that's just Clinton. They'll come back and they'll support it. When she was at the State Department, she set up an office to promote fracking around the world. So what makes you think that this is not just a political ploy?
I don't, and that's my point. I'm not quite ready to say, shoot over Bernie, let's kind of get you out the way. I don't know that his job is done. She still seems to be under the impression that there are safe ways to get coal. I've never heard of a safe earthquake.
You mean natural gas?
Oh, apologies.
Yeah, natural gas, yeah.
But even with coal, when you look at, the disadvantages in terms of health, she seems to still be under certain impressions. I'm going to go out and knock on doors for her. I'm going to do everything that I can do to get her elected, but I'm just not quite ready to shoo Bernie Sanders to the side. I don't know that his job is done. I mean, it's no doubt about it. He's brought her along the way when it comes to the environment. Maybe his duty to train the masses, including Hillary Clinton, isn't quite done. But I'm there for her 100%.
So you support her 100%, but what about her militarism and her corporatism? Like, she gives these speeches in front of Wall Street and she refuses to release the transcript because it's probably embarrassing to her. She's considered a hawk on foreign policy. Does that concern you at all?
Listen, I'm not here to defend Hillary Clinton.
Well, you said you're for 100%.
I am going to support her 100%. I'm going to knock on doors, but I'm here to talk about Catina. I'm here to talk about West Virginia. I'm not.
Well, let's talk about it. You just came back from Charleston.
Yeah.
Where you attended the Democratic convention.
Yeah.
And there was that split, the Bernie-Hillary split within that convention. So give us some of the atmospherics. What was that like? And also, what did they put in the platform for West Virginia, the Democratic platform for West Virginia?
So it was an intense moment. There were 3 particular resolutions, and I don't have the paperwork in front of me, so please don't quote me and ask me specifically what it was. But it got to the point where a quorum had to be called. And it was towards the end when we were voting in the resolutions, and people had already trickled out and started to leave, and it wasn't enough people left to have a quorum. So thank God for cell phones and social media. The call went out, and it's like, hey, if you want these things on the platform, if you want cannabis on the platform, if you want consent on the platform, get your butt back here. And so we had a break, and enough people were able to come back. But it was very contentious. It was cordial, but it was very contentious. The guy, and forgive me, the guy who was chairing the convention, he did a great job, tremendous amount of patience. He gave everyone a say, but there was that divide. As you know, you probably read in the paper that it was voted on to sort of oust the chair of the Democratic Party.
Co-chair.
No, well, we can talk about that, but okay. Debbie Wasserman.
Oh, yes. Oh, right.
Yeah, that went through. It did not go through for Hillary Clinton to release information. Oh, gosh. The resolutions are on my Facebook page. If you want to read the details, I have a pick of all of them, and so you can go through it in detail if you want to go through it. So what they eventually ended up doing was we passed all the resolutions other than those 3 contentious ones that had to do with Hillary Clinton. And so bits and pieces were accepted and weren't accepted. But that was my first national convention. I had never experienced anything like that before. There were a lot of point of orders, a lot of clarifications, a lot of motions. I mean, it was very interesting. If you ever seen Parliament for the British government on C-SPAN, it was very much like that, very exciting. It was almost like a ping pong match. I was doing live blogging and it was going so fast I could barely keep up with it, so I just decided to go ahead and start videotaping it. But kind of to circle back to answer your question, some of them wasn't passed, others were. Okay. And even though it was a divide, as you said, it was very cordial. I didn't notice any hostility. In fact, we had a great time. I mean, I had so much fun meeting different Democrats, and we all came together, and I think we passed a really good platform. We have just a couple minutes left, so let's do a couple of things. One is one of Sarah Blair's signature achievements during this last session was she got past concealed carry for 18-year-olds. Yeah. From talking to you, you favor concealed carry. Well, I think what I mentioned to you specifically was parts of it, not in its entirety. Concealed carry permit? I've been a gun owner for 8 years. Do you have a concealed carry permit? I don't. You don't, okay. No. And what are your thoughts on the legislation that was passed? I think it was a good idea to get rid of the fee. There are a lot of people who couldn't afford it. And so let me give you a little bit of background on. What about training? Yeah, well, let me, before I comment on it, let me give you a little bit of background for Catina. I am somebody who purchased a firearm from living in Maryland, which is a different environment from West Virginia, right? So I had to actually go identify my brother's body who was shot in the head, right? Those images will never leave my mind. So he's in a better place. Thank you. So Catina's reason for getting a gun in Maryland is very much different from that of West Virginians. I don't feel it is my place to impose my culture from Maryland onto West Virginia. Gun ownership in this state is enshrined in the culture. I mean, there are literally families who raise their kids with hunting. So, okay, I'm on board with that part. There needs to be some amount of accountability. Listen, I'm not saying that you have to go out and pay $2,000 or what have you for a course, but at the very least, I mean, I don't think it's asking too much to say, I've spent XYZ amount of hours on the gun range. I am certifying, like, when I was in business, I was allowed to do self-certifications, in some areas. I am self-certifying that I've spent enough hours going out there to do training, or perhaps have someone sign saying, yes, I've spent XYZ dollars training this person. I can certify that this person can safely carry out XYZ. I don't think that's asking too much. Would you have, if you were in her place, would you have voted the same way? No, I think there are a lot, as I mentioned to you last week, I think there are a lot of issues with the bill. There's parts I like, and I don't want to be nasty about it, but I have to be frank, it was a little bit sloppy. I've read it a number of times. I think that there are a lot of loose ends. So I do not think that it's a perfect bill. The other thing she voted for, and most of the Eastern Panhandle contingent voted for, I believe, was drug testing of welfare recipients. Yeah. Would you have voted for that? I would have voted for having drug testing for the legislature. A1. There was a bill. That's what I would have voted for. But would you have voted? I mean, let's say you would. Sure, if the legislature agrees to get drug tested, let's do it. Let's everyone get drug tested. Drug test anybody who. Let's all do it. Let's all have fun and get drug tested. Okay. Yay. How does it feel, by the way? Okay, last thing. How does it feel to be a politician? What's it like? I love meeting people. I've been in the business of people for a very long time, so it's sort of a natural transition for me. Probably, wasn't the happiest idea when I mentioned it to my husband. He sort of had gotten used to me being a stay-at-home wife and mom, but I'm loving it. I love people. I love everybody. Well, Catina Webster, good luck to you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. It's been great. And thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.